Hello, welcome to another update. It's the 12th, not long to go now, just a few days before it's resolved one way or the other. And just to give you a little bit of update, but before we do, I talked about Q last night, and there's been quite a big reaction to that. So I just want to clarify and have things a bit more clear. There is a real Q and there are real Anons. But to my knowledge, there isn't a QAnon. So there are real Anons, predominantly in America, but not exclusively so, researching, decoding, understanding, checking back, projecting forward. And they do a remarkable job. And that's actually what they were supposed to do. And there is a Q, and I want to explain to you, please, what Q is, whether you are going to agree with me or not. But hopefully you're open-minded enough to listen to what I have to say. Originally, Q was 4 guys and a quantum computer, and it was a purely military operation. After the initial information dump had been done, remember, a lot of this was projected forward. A quantum computer operates at or on the speed of light, and it is able to see into the future and predict in a way that no other artificial intelligence or electronic device can do. And so right back in 2016 and 17, information was produced which has an absolute effect today. It's playing out now. How would they know this? Because it was quantum and they could look at the different timelines. When they had done that, they didn't want to get rid of this, but they wanted to pass it across to the people. Because they wanted to build a movement. They wanted to get this information embedded into the American group, but also outside of America. And so a number of teams were selected, and then from that, excuse me, it's grown organically. You can't just be an anon. You have to really sort of be accepted, and you have to be really good at looking at the information and understanding it. Part of this offshoot of this group were the groups cataloguing the affidavits, and this group were actually paid. They actually had a paid job, and they were doing it for 12 months. And I spoke to them on several occasions. At the end of that period, they were no longer paid, but they decided as a group that they would continue voluntarily to maintain this database, to maintain it, to keep it going. And so right across the US, the Anon movement is unfunded and unpaid, and is working on that. But there has to be somebody who oversees the paperwork. That's the best term I can use. There are teams of people. There has to be somebody who manages what the points are. The quantum machine and Q release the information, the drops, but there has to be coordination on the ground. And the vast majority of people in the Q movement do not know who Q is. They don't even know who the people are around making things happen at that level. And that's quite right. And that's as it should be. Now, the person I spoke to over an hour and a half was chosen by, they said to me, I was chosen by the administration. That's the wording they used. I say that's Trump. They were chosen by the administration. And they were chosen to be involved and to do the front-facing work, if you like, the paperwork. So that is the person who I spoke to. It's quite true that Q won't do external material, but the person fronting Q, and I don't mean pretending, I mean the person who is responsible for maintaining the network is able to do that communications. And as I said, that's the person that I spoke to has some incredibly interesting and accurate intel, is embedded with the Trump team and has been, and is very, very closely associated with Q, with the dissemination of information, with the way that it is understood and pushed out. But in terms of say managing people is too grand a word, but in terms of maintaining the impetus, maintaining the power behind it, maintaining the focus and the drive, making sure that that stays through. And that person is associated with the president, and that person has spoken to me. Now, if people are not prepared to accept that, that's perfectly fine. That's your choice. But there will come a time, not too long in the future, when much of this will be made public, made bare, and then that's what will be shown to be happening. So I wanted to get that clear to you. It may be that the Q that we understand is never presented to the public, is never involved in anything outside, but the person that has to act for Q, and that always has to be, because we're in a third dimensional world, we're in a physical world. We can't just rely on electronic communications. There has to be somebody who relates to the president, hears what the president has to say, goes back and say, this is what the boss, that's what he's called, the boss, this is what the boss would like us to do. Now, can we try and do that? Or the boss wants us to bring this forward. So, for many people who are not American, the concept of the boss or POTUS is something that is not natural to us. It's only if you're American or involved in American. But the person that I spoke to last night will always refer to the President of the United States as the boss or POTUS. Okay, so that's a fact. And as I said, if people are struggling to understand that, then I understand that, to a certain extent. But I have to tell you what I'm told. I don't, but I choose to tell you. I choose to pass on what I'm told. And if I'm told something from people who've never let me down, who have always given me good information, I'm not going to start doubting them now. And so what I will do is always pass that information on if it could save lives, or it could empower people, or give people courage or strength or confidence. And goodness knows we need it at the moment, because it seems to be so tipped against us. So that's what that is. Now I want to talk about the Italian. I put a link out, and unfortunately YouTube have taken down the video. So for a while there was the text document and the video had gone. Now they have taken down the text document. Now I don't really understand how it works, but there are some very old phones. I have one old phone deliberately. My old phone is getting the text but not the video. More modern phones that have been updated, particularly Apple phones, not only can they not get the video, but they're not getting the text either. Now I have put that out, and I've taken screenshots, and if it's like completely nobody can get it, I will put those screenshots out. Unfortunately they're just screenshots, but you can read most of it. What it's saying is that an affidavit, and I know that people think outside of America, well, what's the use of an affidavit? Well, it is an important thing in America, but this is important because it's come via the Italian government and the private company running the software and the controls for the Leonardo satellites. Now, that affidavit was deliberately delivered to the Congress before they took the decision to ratify the victory for Biden. That's very important, because by doing that, they've put themselves all into treason. That affidavit could have been delivered at any time. They've been sitting on it for a number of good guys have been holding on it for a while, but they waited until just prior to that confirmation, to the rubber stamping, the certifying of a Biden win. They presented it officially, and now that the Congress has accepted Biden's win and not undertaken an investigation, which any democratic parliament or lawmakers would have done. Hold on.